Hey there, super cool viewers. I'm so excited you're here for this awesome story. Before we get started, I've got a fun question for you. Have you ever had a neighbor who was super nosy and acted like they were the boss of everyone? Like they're always watching what you do? Drop a quick comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. Oh, and if you love stories that make you want to keep watching, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Let's jump right in. Okay, close your eyes for a second and imagine a street that looks like it came straight out of a picture book. It's super quiet, with green lawns that are cut just right, houses that all look kind of the same, and flowers in every yard. It's the kind of place where kids ride their bikes and people wave at each other. Sounds nice, right? Well, it is nice most of the time. This is the neighborhood where a guy named Jake Turner lives, and he's about to have the wildest day ever. Jake is just a regular guy. He's not super tall or super loud or anything like that. He's the kind of person you might not notice at first, but once you know him, you can't help but like him. Jake works at a car shop, fixing engines and making sure everything runs smoothly. He's really good at his job, and when he's done for the day, he loves to hop on his motorcycle and ride around. That motorcycle is his favorite thing in the whole world. It's shiny and black with a cool silver stripe down the side, and when he rides it, he feels like he's flying. Jake's house is small but cozy, with a little garage where he keeps his bike. He's lived in this neighborhood for a couple of years and he likes it okay. Most of his neighbors are friendly, they say hi when they see him, and sometimes they chat about the weather or how the local baseball team is doing. But there's one neighbor who's not so friendly. Her name is Karen, and oh boy, is she a handful. Karen is the boss of something called the HOA, which stands for Homeowners Association. Don't worry if that sounds fancy, it's just a group that makes rules for the neighborhood, like what color your house can be or how tall your grass can grow. Sounds boring, right? Well, Karen makes it not boring, but not in a good way. She loves rules, loves them more than Jake loves his motorcycle, and that's saying something. If your mailbox is a tiny bit crooked or you leave your trash can out for an extra hour, Karen will know about it. And she won't just let it go, she'll write you a letter or knock on your door or even tell everyone else in the neighborhood about it. Karen walks around with a clipboard like she's a teacher checking homework. She's always wearing a bright pink sweater, even when it's super hot outside, and her hair is piled up so high it looks like it might fall over. Everyone knows when Karen's coming because you can hear her shouting from a mile away. Your dog barked too loud, she'll say, or your porch light is too bright. Most people in the neighborhood just sigh and try to stay out of her way. They don't want trouble, and Karen is trouble with a capital T. Jake, though, he's not scared of Karen. He's had to deal with her a bunch of times already. One time she told him his truck was parked wrong because it was a tiny bit over the line into the street. Another time she said his garage door was too loud when it opened. Jake just smiled and nodded, but deep down he was getting tired of it. He didn't like how Karen acted like she owned the whole neighborhood, bossing everyone around like they were kids in school. Now here, where things get interesting, Jake's not just a guy who fixes cars and rides a motorcycle. He's got a secret, something nobody in the neighborhood knows about, not even Karen. And trust me, Karen thinks she knows everything. Jake's secret is like a puzzle piece that's about to make this whole story go from normal to totally crazy. But I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet. Nope, you've got to keep watching to find out. Let's go back to that quiet street for a minute. It's a Saturday morning and the sun is shining. Birds are chirping and a couple of kids are riding their scooters down the sidewalk. Jake in his garage working on something special. It's not his motorcycle this time, it's a rack he built to hold his bike. The rack is super cool, made of metal that shines in the sunlight. Jake spent weeks making it and he's proud of how it looks. He sets it up in his driveway right next to his house where it's not in anyone's way. To Jake, it's perfect. But guess who doesn't think it's perfect? Yup, you got it, Karen. She's walking down the street with her clipboard looking for something to complain about when she spots Jake's motorcycle rack. Her eyes get all narrow like a cat that just saw a mouse. She marches over to Jake's driveway so fast you'd think her pink sweater was on fire. Jake Turner, she yells, pointing at the rack like it's the worst thing she's ever seen. What is this? Jake looks up from his work, wiping his hands on a rag. He's got a little smile on his face like he knows something Karen doesn't. It's a motorcycle rack, Karen, he says calmly. I built it to hold my bike. Karen's face turns redder than a tomato. This is not allowed, she shouts. It's ugly and it's against the rules. You can't just put whatever you want in your driveway. Jake raises an eyebrow. It's my driveway, Karen, and it's not hurting anybody. Not hurting anybody? Karen's voice is so loud now that a couple of neighbors peek out their windows to see what's going on. This neighborhood has rules, Jake. Rules that keep everything nice. People like you think you can just do whatever you want, but I'm not going to let you ruin our street. Jake doesn't say much. He just leans against his garage door, still smiling that little smile. But inside, he's thinking about all the times Karen has picked on him and everyone else. He's thinking about how she acts like she's the queen of the neighborhood. And he's thinking about that secret he's got, the one that's going to make Karen wish she'd never messed with him. Karen stomps her foot and waves her clipboard. I'm warning you, Jake, she says. If that rack isn't gone by tomorrow, I'm calling the police. You'll be sorry. Jake shrugs like he's not worried at all. Do what you gotta do, Karen, he says. Then he turns back to his work, acting like she's not even there. Karen huffs and puffs and storms off, muttering about disrespectful people and ruining the neighborhood. But as she walks away, Jake pulls out his phone. He dials a number and speaks quietly so nobody can hear. Hey, he says, it's me. She's at it again. Can you look into something for me? Who's Jake talking to? What's he asking them to do? And why isn't he scared of Karen's threats? Those are the questions that make this story so exciting, and I promise you're going to love what happens next. So here's another fun question for you awesome viewers. What would you do if someone told you they were calling the cops on you for something silly like a bike rack? Would you laugh? Would you argue? Tell me in the comments because I really want to know. And stick around because this story is about to get nuts. Karen thinks she's got Jake right where she wants him, but she's about to find out she's wrong, really wrong. Jake's secret is like a bomb waiting to go off, and when it does, it's going to shake up the whole neighborhood. But for now, all you need to know is that Jake's not just a guy with a motorcycle. He's someone who's ready to stand up to a bully like Karen, and he's got a plan that's going to make her jaw drop. Thanks for watching this far. You're the best, and I can't wait to tell you more. Keep those comments coming, hit that like button if you're excited, and let's see what happens when Karen tries to take on Jake. Trust me, it's going to be a wild ride. Hey, awesome viewer, are you ready to see what happens next in this crazy story? If you're loving this so far, drop a comment and tell me what you think Karen's going to do. And don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps. Let's dive back in. It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning, and Jake Turner was in his garage working on his favorite thing in the world, his motorcycle rack. This wasn't just any rack, it was super cool, made of shiny metal that sparkled in the sun. Jake had spent months building it, making sure every piece was perfect. He loved how it looked, sitting neatly in his driveway, holding his motorcycle like a trophy. It didn't block the sidewalk or bother anyone. To Jake, it was awesome. But not to Karen. Oh no, Karen thought that Rack was the worst thing ever. Karen was the boss of the neighborhood HOA, which is a group that makes rules for how houses and yards should look. She loved those rules more than anything, and she loved telling people what to do. On this morning, Karen was walking down the street with her clipboard looking for something to complain about. When she saw Jake's motorcycle Rack, her eyes got all squinty, like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. She marched right up to Jake's driveway, her pink sweater flapping and her face all scrunched up. "Jake Turner," she yelled, pointing at the Rack like it was a monster. "This ugly thing is against HOA rules. It's an eyesore and you have 24 hours to get rid of it or I'm calling the police." Jake was wiping his hands on a rag, leaning against his motorcycle. He looked at Karen and tried not to laugh. Her face was so red it looked like it might pop. "Karen," he said, super calm, "it's just a motorcycle Rack. It's not hurting anybody. Maybe you should relax a little." "Relax?" Karen's voice got so loud it sounded like a siren. A couple of neighbors opened their curtains to see what was going on. "This neighborhood has rules, Jake. We have standards. People like you think you can just do whatever you want, but I'm here to keep things nice." Jake shrugged, but inside he was mad. Really mad. He dealt with Karen before and it was always the same. One time she fined him because his truck was parked a tiny bit too close to the street. Another time she said his porch light was too bright and sent him a letter about it. Those things were annoying, but this was different. This was about his motorcycle Rack, something he'd worked hard on. It felt personal, like Karen was picking on him just because she could. What Karen didn't know was that Jake wasn't just a regular guy who liked motorcycles. He had a secret job, a side gig that made him different from everyone else in the neighborhood. Jake helped the police with special work, like figuring out if people were doing sneaky bad things. He was really good at it, and he knew people who could find out all kinds of stuff. Karen thought she was the smartest person on the block, but Jake had tricks she didn't even know about. As Karen stood there, yelling and waving her clipboard, Jake stayed cool. He didn't argue or yell back. He just looked at her with a tiny smile, like he knew something she didn't. That smile made Karen even madder. "You think this is funny?" she shouted. "You'll see, Jake. I'm going to make sure everyone knows you're breaking the rules." With that, Karen turned and stomped away, her shoes clicking on the pavement. She was already writing something on her clipboard, probably a big, angry note about Jake. The neighbors who were watching went back inside, shaking their heads. They knew Karen was trouble, but most of them were too scared to stand up to her. Jake watched her go, still smiling. As soon as she was out of sight, he pulled his phone out of his pocket. He walked into his garage where it was quiet and made a call. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice low. "It's me. Yeah, Karen's at it again. Can you check something for me? I need to know what she's been up to." Who was Jake talking to? What was he asking them to check? And why was he so calm when Karen was threatening to call the police? Those are the questions that make this story so exciting, and I'm not going to tell you the answers just yet. You've got to keep watching to find out. But here's a hint. Karen thought she was in charge, but Jake was already one step ahead. His secret job gave him a kind of power that Karen couldn't even imagine. While she was busy yelling about his motorcycle Rack, Jake was starting to put together a plan that would make her wish she'd never messed with him. The next day, Karen didn't stop. She was like a dog with a bone, determined to make Jake's life miserable. She sent him a fancy letter from the HOA, typed up all official-like, saying he had to remove the Rack or he'd get a big fine. She even called his phone and left a voicemail, her voice all sharp and mean. "Jake, this is Karen Mitchell from the HOA," she said. You're in violation of Section 3, Paragraph 2 of the neighborhood rules. If that rack isn't gone by tomorrow, I'm reporting you to the authorities." Jake listened to the message and rolled his eyes. He wasn't scared of Corinne's threats. He knew she liked to act big and tough, but he also knew something else, something that made him sure she wasn't as powerful as she thought. His phone call from the day before was already starting to pay off. His friend, the one he'd called, was digging up information about Corinne and the HOA. And let me tell you, what they were finding was juicy. Jake went back to his garage and looked at his motorcycle rack. It was still there, shiny and perfect, just like he wanted it. He wasn't going to move it, no matter what Corinne said. This wasn't just about a rack anymore. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could bully everyone. Jake was tired of Corinne's nonsense, and he was ready to show her that she wasn't the boss of him. So what do you think, viewers? If someone was trying to boss you around like Corinne, what would you do? Would you ignore them or would you fight back? Drop your ideas in the comments because I'm super curious. And stick with me because this story is about to get even wilder. Corinne's about to make a big mistake and Jake's secret is going to change everything. Keep watching to see what happens next. Hey, awesome viewers, you're not going to believe what happens next in this wild story. If you're hooked, drop a comment and tell me, do you think Corinne's going to get away with being so bossy? Oh, and hit that like button to keep the fun going. Let's jump back in. After Corinne's big fight with Jake about his motorcycle rack, she didn't stop. Not even a little bit. She was like a storm that just kept getting louder and messier. The next day, Jake found a fancy letter taped to his front door. It was from the HOA, which is the group Corinne runs. The letter was full of big words, but basically it said, "Get rid of your motorcycle rack or you're in big trouble." Jake read it, shook his head, and tossed it in the trash. He wasn't scared of Corinne's letters. His rack was staying right where it was, shiny, cool, and perfect in his driveway. But Corinne wasn't done. Later that day, Jake's phone buzzed with a voicemail. He played it and heard Corinne's voice, sharp and angry. "Jake Turner, this is Corinne from the HOA," she said. "Your rack is a problem and it's making our neighborhood look bad. If it's not gone soon, I'm going to make sure you regret it." Jake listened and rolled his eyes. He wasn't going to let Corinne boss him around. Corinne didn't stop with letters and calls. She started talking to other neighbors, trying to get them to join her side. She knocked on doors, waving her clipboard and saying stuff like, "Jake's motorcycle rack is ruining our street. We can't let him get away with this." Most neighbors didn't care. They liked Jake and they thought the rack looked fine. But a couple of people who were afraid of making Corinne mad nodded along. They didn't want her yelling at them next. One neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, told Corinne, "Okay, I'll sign your paper." She didn't really think the rack was bad, but she wanted Corinne to leave her alone. Another guy, Mr. Lopez, said, "Sure, Corinne, whatever you say." He just wanted to go back to watching his favorite TV show. Corinne wrote their names down, smiling like she was winning a game. She thought if she got enough people to complain, Jake would have to listen to her. But Jake, he didn't move an inch. Every morning he walked out to his driveway and checked on his rack. It was still there, gleaming in the sunlight, holding his motorcycle like it was meant to. He wasn't going to let Corinne or anyone else tell him what to do. And here's the thing, Jake wasn't just being stubborn. He had a secret, something Corinne didn't know about. That secret was making him super calm, even when Corinne was acting like a volcano about to explode. One evening, Jake was in his garage fixing a little piece on his motorcycle. The sun was setting and the air was cool. He was humming a song, happy to be working on something he loved. That's when Corinne showed up again. She marched across the street, her pink sweater glowing in the dusk. This time, she had her phone in her hand and her face was madder than ever. "Jake Turner," she shouted, so loud that a dog down the street started barking. "I've had enough. That rack is still here and I'm done warning you. I'm calling 911 right now. You're a troublemaker and this neighborhood doesn't need people like you." Now Jake looked up from his tools, not even standing up. He raised one eyebrow like he was a little curious but not worried at all. "Go ahead, Karen," he said, his voice super chill. "Call them, let's see what happens." Karen blinked, surprised. She expected Jake to beg her to stop or maybe get mad, but he was acting like he didn't care. That made her a tiny bit nervous, but only for a second. She shook her head and pressed buttons on her phone. "You'll be sorry," she snapped. Then she spoke into the phone, her voice loud and fake scared. "Hello, yes, this is Karen Mitchell. There's a man in my neighborhood causing a big problem with an illegal rack. He's breaking all our rules. I need police here right away." When she hung up, Karen crossed her arms and gave Jake a big, smug smile. "You're finished, Jake," she said. "The police are coming and they'll make you take that ugly thing down." Jake didn't say much. He just gave her a little smile back, a smile that said, "I know something you don't." That smile made Karen's tummy feel funny, like something wasn't right, but she pushed the feeling away. She stood there in Jake's driveway, waiting for the police to show up and prove she was the boss. What Karen didn't know was that Jake wasn't just a guy who liked motorcycles. He had a special job on the side, helping the police figure out if people were doing sneaky things. He was really good at finding secrets, and lately he'd been hearing some weird stuff about the HOA, stuff that had Karen's name all over it. When he called his friend the other day, he asked them to check on Karen. And guess what? They were finding things that weren't good for her. Jake went back to his work, acting like Karen wasn't even there. He tightened a bolt on his motorcycle, whistling a little tune. Karen watched him, getting madder every second. How could he be so calm? Didn't he know the police were coming? She tapped her foot, waiting, sure that any minute now Jake would be in big trouble. Then, after a few minutes, they heard its sirens. They were far away at first, but they got louder and louder. Karen's smile got bigger. She thought the police were coming to back her up, to tell Jake he was wrong and she was right. She stood tall, arms still crossed, ready to watch Jake get what she thought he deserved. Now, 2 police cars pulled into the street, their lights flashing red and blue. Karen pointed at Jake and said, "There he is. That's the guy causing all the trouble." But then something super weird happened. The police officers got out of their cars and they didn't walk toward Jake. Nope, they walked straight up to Karen. "Ma'am," one officer said, looking right at her. His voice was serious, like when a teacher means business. "We need to talk to you right now." Karen's mouth dropped open, her big smile disappeared like someone had turned off a light. What?" she stammered. "No, you don't understand. I called you about him." She pointed at Jake, her finger shaking a little. Jake was leaning against his garage door now, watching everything. That little smile was still on his face, and his eyes were twinkling, like he knew exactly what was going on. What was happening? Why were the police talking to Karen instead of Jake? And what did Jake's secret have to do with it? Hey viewers, what do you think? If you were Jake, would you be nervous or super calm like him? Tell me in the comments because I'm dying to know. Stick around because this story about to get even crazier. Hey super cool viewers, you're in for a wild ride now because this is the part of the story where everything explodes into action. If you're loving this, drop a comment and tell me, do you think Karen's going to get away with her bossy ways? Oh, and hit that like button to keep the fun going. Let's dive into the big moment. The police cars were parked right in front of Jake's house, their red and blue lights flashing like a fireworks show. Karen stood in Jake's driveway, her arms crossed, thinking she'd won. She was sure the police were there to make Jake take down his shiny motorcycle rack, the one she hated so much. She'd called 911 herself, saying Jake was causing trouble, and now she was waiting to see him get in trouble. Her face had a big, smug smile, like she was the queen of the neighborhood. But then something totally unexpected happened. The police officers got out of their cars and they didn't even look at Jake. Nope, they walked straight up to Karen. The crowd of neighbors who had come out to watch the drama started whispering. Karen's smile froze like someone had pressed pause on her face. The lead officer, a tall guy with a serious look, pulled out a little notepad. He flipped it open and stared right at Karen. "Karen Mitchell," he said, his voice loud and clear. "We've heard some bad stuff about you and the HOA. Can you tell us why a whole bunch of money from the neighborhood is missing?" Karen's face turned as white as a sheet of paper. Her mouth opened, but no words came out at first. "Am missing," she finally squeaked. "That's crazy. I'm the boss of the HOA. I make sure everything is perfect." The neighbors gasped, their eyes wide. "Missing money from the HOA? That's the group that's supposed to take care of the neighborhood, like fixing the park or keeping the streets clean." Everyone started looking at Karen, wondering what was going on. Jake, who was leaning against his garage door, stepped forward. He wasn't smiling anymore, but his voice was calm and strong, like he wasn't scared at all. "You know what's funny, Karen," he said. "I've been helping the police check some things. They were looking at the HOA's money, and guess what? Someone been taking it and putting it in their own pocket. And that someone's name, it keeps showing up as yours." The crowd gasped even louder. A few people covered their mouths like they couldn't believe it. Karen's eyes got huge and she looked around like she wanted to run away but didn't know where to go. "That's a lie," she shouted, her voice all shaky. "You're making this up, Jake. You're just mad about your stupid rack." But the police officer didn't think it was a lie. He held up his hand to stop her from talking. "We've got proof, Ms. Mitchell," he said. "We checked the bank papers and we talked to people who saw what you did. You've been using the neighborhood's money for your own stuff, like fancy trips, a new car, and all kinds of things you didn't tell anyone about." Then the officer looked at Karen with a raised eyebrow. "And here's the funny part," he said. "We were already coming to talk to you about this when you called us. You said it was about what? A motorcycle rack." The neighbors started whispering again, and some even giggled. "A motorcycle rack, that's why Karen called the police?" Everyone turned to look at Jake's rack, sitting there all shiny and cool in the driveway. It didn't look like a problem at all. It looked awesome. Karen's face went from white to red like a stoplight changing colors. She dropped her clipboard and it clattered on the ground. "This is wrong," she yelled. "You're all teaming up against me. I didn't do anything bad." But Jake just crossed his arms and shook his head. "You thought you could boss everyone around, Karen," he said. "You thought you could scare me into moving my rack, but you picked the wrong guy to mess with." The crowd was buzzing now like a swarm of bees. People were pointing at Karen, talking to each other and shaking their heads. For years, Karen had been the one telling everyone what to do, yelling about mailboxes, grass, and porch lights. She acted like she owned the neighborhood and nobody dared to argue with her. But now it was all falling apart right there in Jake's driveway. The second police officer stepped forward holding a pair of shiny handcuffs. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, "we need you to come with us. You've got some questions to answer." Karen's eyes got even bigger, if that was possible. "No," she shouted. "This is a mistake. I'm the HOA president. I'll sue all of you." She waved her arms, pointing at Jake, the police, and even the neighbors watching. But nobody listened. The officers were calm but firm. They told her she had the right to stay quiet and all that stuff you hear in police shows. Then they gently took her arms and started walking her to the police car. Karen kept yelling as they led her away. "You can't do this. I'm in charge. Jake's the problem, not me." Her voice echoed down the street, getting quieter as the officers put her in the back of the car. The door shut with a loud thunk, and just like that, Karen wasn't the boss anymore. Jake stood there watching it all happen. His motorcycle rack was still in the driveway, gleaming in the sunset like it was smiling too. He didn't say anything else, but you could tell he felt good. He stood up to Karen, and now everyone knew the truth. The neighbors couldn't stop talking. "Did you hear that?" one lady said to her friend. "She was taking our money." A man nodded and said, "I knew something was fishy with her." Even the kids who were watching were whispering, excited about the big drama. Jake's secret was out now, and it was a doozy. He wasn't just a guy who fixed cars and rode a motorcycle. He worked with the police, helping them find people who did sneaky things. That's why he wasn't scared of Karen's threats. He knew she was up to no good, and he'd been helping the police figure it out. When Karen called 911, she thought she was getting Jake in trouble, but really, she was walking right into a trap she didn't even see coming. The police cars started to drive away, with Karen still shouting from the back seat. The neighbors watched until the lights disappeared around the corner. Then they turned to Jake, who was still standing by his garage. A few people clapped, and one guy even cheered. "Way to go, Jake," he said. Jake just waved, a little shy. He didn't need a big fuss. He was just happy his rack was safe and Karen wasn't bossing anyone around anymore.